Today's episode is a really special one, and I think it's going to land deeply for so many of you, especially if you've ever felt like your body needed something more than the usual approach to health and wellness. So often we're taught to push, to do more, to train harder, to fix things from the outside in. But what happens when your body is asking for something different? Something softer, more supportive, more intuitive? That's exactly what we're diving into today. I'm joined by Rakhi Swales, yoga therapist, certified meditation teacher, Reiki practitioner, Ayurvedic lifestyle consultant, and a personal friend of mine. Her work focuses on adaptive, accessible, and restorative practices, particularly supporting those navigating complex health conditions, chronic illness, or recovery. In this conversation, we explore what yoga therapy really is and how it goes far beyond what most of us think of as yoga. We also talk about how practices like yoga and Ayurveda can beautifully complement traditional medical care, offering a more holistic and compassionate approach to healing. This episode is an invitation to shift the way you think about your body, to move away from force and towards support. Thanks for tuning in again today to the Can I Get a Refill podcast. I'm your host, Steph Bruno-Newton. If you haven't already, do jump on the website www.canigetarefillpodcast.com.au, linked below, to download your free ebook on 7 steps to protect your energy and fill up your cup. The relationship with yourself is the foundation for all areas of your life, so make it a very successful, supportive one. Download it today and make yourself a priority. Okay, now let's jump in. Hello, my cup fillers, and welcome back to the Can I Get a Refill podcast. We are joined by a personal friend of mine today, Rakhi Swales. Rakhi, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Steph. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. For anyone who listens regularly, you will have heard me reference one of my besties, Liz, who I've known from school since '98, and Liz introduced us. And recently, I put on my Instagram, we had a girls' Friday night yoga class with you, which was so amazing and the absolute epitome of filling up your cup. It was so good.
It's so strange. I've been practicing yoga for so many years. I've been teaching for so many years. And then it took me so long to think of doing this with girlfriends as an alternative thing to do, besides just catching up.
No, well, it's funny too, because like the culture for, in Sydney especially was always, let's go out for a drink, let's go out for a drink. And then you get older and I haven't touched a drink in so long. And I'm like, what else can we do where we can get together and have it was just a real like feminine bonding experience, because you practice out of Zenley. Is it Alexandria? No, St. Peter's. Zenley and
St. Peter's, yeah.
And the foyer area has all these, what do you call them?
They're swings. Not hammocks. They're swings. No, they're swings.
They're so good. You're hanging them like a pod or something. It was so fantastic. It's such a beautiful place. But yeah, and I missed the second one, so we'll have to do another one soon. But it was really great. But yeah, you do such interesting work. And I was like, no, you're coming on the podcast. So I'm very excited to have you here today. So we'll jump in. I've got lots to ask you. So we were just discussing off air. I think a lot of people associate yoga with flexibility or fitness. So what actually is yoga and where does yoga therapy sit?
Wow. I could talk about this for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But let me... Look, there are some very real fitness and flexibility benefits to practicing yoga asana. That's the movement part of yoga. So having said that, those things have sort of become the main headline of yoga. When people think of yoga, all they're thinking of is asana practice, movement. Yeah. But if you consider the 8 limbs of yoga, asana is limb 3. There's so much more to yoga than just movement. There are so many more subtle practices. Yoga was never about fitness. It was really about developing a relationship with your body, your mind, and the world around you. So all of the practices of yoga, whether it's movement, breath, meditation, intention, gratitude, stillness, rest, all of those are yoga. But very specifically, practiced in a way that's right for you. I think everyone practices yoga. There's a different yoga for everyone. Yes. And if, going back to yogic texts, Bhagavad Gita talks about yoga as equanimity, finding balance to sort of meet the highs and lows of life. And the Yoga Sutras talk about yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, which is stilling the fluctuations of the mind, just finding that steadiness in the mind to help you get through whatever is coming at you, and
Mm.
that could be everyday life, that could be big things, that could be little things, so yoga is really about developing that relationship, first with yourself and
Yes.
then with the world.
Yeah, you listen to my podcast. That is what I harp on about over and over and over again. It is really the foundation for all areas of life, that relationship with the self. But so many of us, and especially women and especially mothers, you let that slip by the wayside, and then everything else seems to go to shit when you've neglected yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to why we started this conversation about fitness and flexibility, so much of yoga that we see in media, social media, it's made yoga a lot more performative. Um,
When you started talking, I was going to say you hear yoga and now you think of white, skinny influencers in aloe yoga active gear.
well, the nice thing is the conversations about yoga are changing.
Mm.
Yoga has become a lot more diverse. Yoga is going back to more traditional roots, and I'm so grateful to see people actually talking about the history. Yoga is a living tradition. It is
Mm.
not something that belongs stuck in a gym or on an Instagram page. And those conversations are changing. There's some amazing people doing some great work in changing those conversations. So it is changing. 5 years ago, if you Instagrammed yoga, you would see what you said, skinny white woman
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in fitness gear. And now you see a lot more representation, and a lot more going back to the roots of what yoga really is, when you look
Yeah.
at yoga in the media.
And I like what you said there. I had someone on here once talking about meditation, and he said it's the great equalizer. And I feel like yoga is on the same sort of thing. You can't expect everything in life to be happy all the time. That's actually not the aim. The aim is how do we deal with the challenges as they arise, and having that. And I was just talking to you off air about the anxiety I used to have as a constant hum. And it's about getting to that place through all different methods where you can deal with things as they arise because they will
Yeah,
arise. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So what's yoga therapy?
So yoga therapy is yoga. It's
Mm.
just the tools or the practices of yoga applied in a therapeutic setting. So with
Right.
yoga therapy, we work very specifically with um, very specific needs and goals. So if you think of a yoga class could address a common theme, like, today we're going to explore steadiness and balance.
Yeah.
But it's a common class goal. Whereas in yoga therapy, we're meeting one person and we're addressing something that they need. For example, someone comes to you and says that they have um, headaches. So
Mm.
we look at headaches from a yoga therapy framework and say, okay, why might this person be having those headaches? Is it a postural thing? Is it a stress thing? Is it an emotional thing? And we sort of diagnose is the wrong word, but it paints a good picture of how we try and sort of get to the root of what might be causing the problem and what can we do to alleviate the problem.
Mm.
What practices should we offer this person or explore with this person to help them find relief, to manage this issue? So, if it's a postural problem, we could look at movement as a practice or realigning how they sit. Maybe the chair they're sitting on or the way they're sleeping is an issue. Address those things, but also give them ways to deal with the actual headache itself. If it's an emotional problem, maybe you look to practices like meditation and journaling or breath work.
Rakhi, do you do work? I think you do. I think we've discussed it once with chakras.
Yes, yeah, we do
Yes,
look at
because I think
chakras as well.
I said to you once that I always used to get who was I reading? Oh, an upcoming guest. She was from India actually. She had some sort of trauma and she stopped speaking, or she had a stutter when she was young, and it was about her not having a freedom of her voice, which she later realized now, and now she coaches women, which, like, in a way, that resonates with me because I often would, when I used to do singing, would lose my voice, or I mean, a lot of it would be a technique issue, but I just always had throat issues. And every time I do like a chakra meditation, every time I'd feel good going through all of them. And when I would get to either the heart, but especially the throat, I would just feel, I can't explain it. Maybe it was some sort of irritability or some sort of shame or something. And so that's how I knew there was an issue with me not speaking my truth. So do you ever have people where they come with specific issues and you might think, okay, there's a blockage of a particular chakra because of a particular issue? Like, for example, me wasn't speaking my truth.
Yeah, we do look at chakras. The beautiful thing about yoga therapy is you're looking at the whole person. So if someone comes and tells me I have headaches, I'm not just looking at what's causing the headaches. I'm also inquiring what's going on in their life, what's happening with their work, and in that conversation, things come up that you can actually help address as part of that bigger picture. But I also do want to say that during a yoga therapy session, people will tell you a lot more than is within my scope as a yoga therapist to actually give them advice on. So for me, really, it is about taking what I can help them with as a yoga therapist from that conversation, and then using that to help them explore practices. And yeah, sure, we definitely work with chakras as well, but it is one of many, many frameworks that you apply as a yoga therapist when you're
Yes.
actually using this sort of whole person centered approach.
And I love those holistic approaches because they can be multifaceted. Something like a headache might be environment, it might be, yeah, stress, it might be the way you're sitting.
Yeah.
Very often it's not just one issue, isn't it? Yeah. You specialize in adaptive and accessible practices. What does that actually look like in real life? And why is that so important in the healing process?
Uh, when I tell people that I work, when I sort of lean towards accessible practices, they automatically think, oh, she does chair yoga and gentle yoga and things like that. But accessibility is actually such a big conversation. It is accessibility when it comes to body size, disability, culture, financial access,
Yeah.
the time, how much time do you have for a practice, trauma, illness, injury, all of that requires accessibility. And for example, body size, you're looking at bigger bodies, smaller bodies, bodies recovering from injury, older bodies, how do we find practices that these people can access? When it comes to disability, like you said, the first thing we talked about was fitness and flexibility. If that's all people think yoga is, someone who's sitting in a wheelchair or someone who's just recovering from a broken leg is not going to want to come for a yoga practice. So making sure that people understand that there is a practice irrespective of what body shape and size you are. Financial access is a really important thing. If you think about the people who go to yoga studios, they have lots of disposable income. But the people who actually need yoga may not have access to the financial means to go see someone who can give them that support, help them with those practices. So making sure pricing is fair,
Yeah.
sliding scales or tiered paying methods, you pay what you can,
Yeah.
options for certain people. The hospital that I work at has access to funds that they offer people who are in financial distress, so
That's
that they can
great.
actually access a lot of the services that we provide them free of cost. When it comes to trauma, accessibility is about invitational language, giving people agency over how they choose to practice, given that they've been in situations where they felt that they don't have control,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
accessibility in terms of culture is really about people knowing that yoga as a practice is not a religious practice, it's more a spiritual practice. And no matter where you come from and what you believe in, you can still benefit from a yoga practice. It's about, honoring where the lineage and the traditions of yoga have come from. And it's about representation. Now, also, so sort of where accessibility fits in the work that I do is really about making sure that I'm able to offer people, that was the cat's tail that just whipped by.
No.
For accessible, she's very interested in what's going on.
Yeah, she can join. Hey girl.
That's it. Yeah, so where accessibility fits in my practice is making sure that no matter who comes to me, they feel like there's a space for them. They feel like there's a practice for them. And that anyone who has at any point in time thought, this is not for me, I would want them to know that there is something here for you.
I love that. And it's a form of healing, isn't it? And healing is for everybody. And something as simple as financial, that is a big issue for a lot of people. There's been so many times in my life where I needed to address certain areas, but I couldn't financially. And it's yeah, it feels not fair in the moment. So
Yeah.
that's good that there are options out there. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love that you position yoga as a complementary practice. Off air, we were talking about, I was saying with me with anxiety, I've dealt with it in a multifaceted way. So herbal, medicinal, and, certain practices. How have you seen these practices support people alongside more conventional treatments, particularly with chronic illness, even cancer?
I want to first say that it's really important that when we're talking about something like yoga therapy, that we're very clear that it's a complementary practice and
Yes.
not an alternative practice.
Yes.
That distinction is extremely important to me. Um,
Mm.
if you think about, I think Eastern and Western medicine actually work so beautifully together. In
Agree.
Western medicine, you're usually treating a very, very specific condition, a
Mm.
very specific thing. You go to the GP because you've got the flu or, you've got measles. The doctor is helping you heal a very specific thing. But that one thing that's happened to you has sort of rippling side effects. It is impacting your whole life. If you take a complex medical condition like cancer, the disease itself has so many repercussions. Just knowing that you have a diagnosis will cause you anxiety and sleeplessness and all that worry that comes with learning you've had cancer. The actual cancer itself is causing your body to work in a way that is not normal. And then when you start treatment, a lot of the treatments are fairly toxic to the body. Chemotherapy is killing the cancer, but it is also affecting the healthy tissues and cells in your body. The good news is that with something like cancer, medicine has come such a long way. People who get a cancer diagnosis now are actually living for so much longer than they did years ago.
Yes.
What
Yes.
yoga therapy and complementary practices like yoga therapy, massage, reflexology, acupuncture, what these things do is ensure that those many years that have been added to your life are good quality years, and that you're actually feeling a little bit better through the treatment, after the treatment, helping you manage not just the symptoms of the disease, but also the side effects of the treatment. So
Yes.
if you're doing treatment that's causing you nausea, how can I help with, say, very gentle movement or breathing practices that help keep that nausea feeling a little better? One of the side effects of some of the cancer treatments is peripheral neuropathy, where you get tingling and numbness in your fingers. Can we do some mudra work or some breath work to actually help with stimulating those nerve endings and helping with sensation in those points? If you're suffering from sleeplessness, can we offer you a yoga nidra practice that actually helps you get
Mm.
rest without actually sleep? You know,
Yes.
non yoga
Yes.
nidra is a form of non sleep deep rest. So really sort of looking at ways that practices like this can support you from diagnosis to after treatment.
Yes.
Um, and while Western medicine is doing a really specific job, you have these other practices that come and sort of wrap around the person. It's the whole thing is part of one care team.
No, I love that. And I've always combined both. I've always gone to the doctor and taken what medicine, but I find that that's targeting the imminent issue. but that might be a result of an underlying issue. So, for instance, I mean, I always quote Louise Hay, and she believes that cancer comes from resentment. So, yeah, if I had cancer, I'd go and get the chemo and go and do all that, but then I would do all the work to figure out what that underlying issue is. But I always find when I do sort of Eastern things, it's long-term solution, and then the Western medicine is let's get rid of it now. But I'll do both in conjunction with each other. So I like that you said that, to make that distinction, that it's a complementary thing. It's not fixing anything, but it's working alongside medicine.
Yeah. If you also look at practices like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda,
Yeah,
they're preventive practices, they're lifestyle
preventive.
practices. You don't wait to fall sick
Yes.
to live, to practice Ayurveda or to have Ayurvedic practices or traditional Chinese medicine practices. Yeah, those things do help you when you're sick, but they're not just for when you're sick.
Yes.
Whereas
Yeah, and it's
Western
the
medicine, you
quality
don't
of
pop a
life.
pill. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't pop a pill unless you're sick. I mean, you're not preemptively taking, I might get a headache, so I'm going to have a Panadol. You don't do
Yes,
that.
exactly. Yeah. And you know what you said before, it was so true about the other things that come alongside a diagnosis of an illness is the sort of the anxiety or the sleeplessness. And people in my family who have had cancer, they might have had it for years, but once they find out they've got it, they've plummeted quickly. And I think 100% that fear is really something that goes along with it. It's almost like your body then submits because your mind has said, well, we're sick now, and it submits to it. And I heard this doctor saying that the research in cancer treatment has come so far that they go, if you ever are, touch wood, God forbid, diagnosed, the first thing you should do is tell yourself, this is manageable. I can manage this. There are lots of things. And there was something about her saying that made me feel so at ease that if anything ever were to happen, I would say, okay. And that's my go-to. My go-to is panic in the first instance, then action plan. I'm the girl with the notebook. What can we do, and I really like that. Like there are solutions. Like, is it Marie Forleo who says everything is figure-outable? There's always solutions to things. So let's just, but I like that. I really, really like the combination of the two together. That's something that's always worked for me. I've always been a girl that's gone to naturopaths and acupuncture, and I've talked openly about my struggles with infertility, not when I had Leo, but the second time around. And so I've gone back to my wonderful acupuncturist. Actually, Rob, when it's her acupuncturist, she referred me to him. I used to go to him 10 years ago. He's so great. And doing all those practices and taking my herbs to calm my nerves and stuff. So the two go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, and I love that, really big centers like, Chris O'Brien Lifehouse, and in America, Memorial Sloan Kettering, two massive, pioneers in cancer care, are actively pushing supportive care therapies to really make sure that anyone who's coming through their doors is completely taken care of. It's not just about the oncology and the chemotherapy, radiation, and all of that. It's also how do we really look after these people and ensure that while they're healing, their minds, their body, their breath, all of that is looked after. And
know that they did a holistic approach like that. I love that so much because I would imagine with something severe as a cancer diagnosis, you would feel so isolated and just in fear. So having a support network, especially, people who know what they're talking about, would feel really comforting. So that's beautiful. Yeah. I like that so much. For someone completely new to Ayurveda, what are a few simple practical ways they can begin to support their body and energy in their day-to-day life?
You did a beautiful Ayurveda podcast.
I did, and I had
a
few people reach out to me saying, I don't know what that is, and I don't even know how to pronounce it. So I feel like there's probably not enough talk of it in mainstream. It's starting to gain traction, but yeah.
So Ayurveda means life, Veda is knowledge. So Ayurveda is really like an ancient life science. And is part of the Vedas, which are these ancient Indian texts. And really, it's about lifestyle practices to support your life. and some of the key things in Ayurveda believes that we are all made of 5 elements. I think that's lovely. We are of the earth. We are of the universe. And those 5 elements are clubbed in different ways to create something called the doshas, which are really like sort of bio patterns. And we have 3 primary doshas, which is vata, which is air and ether, pitta, which is fire and water, and kapha, which is earth and water, which is me.
Yes,
And
that's
and
easy.
everyone has all of these doshas in some amount, but you usually have 1 or 2 dominant doshas.
Yes.
There are some tridoshic people who have all 3 in about equal measure. But it's really, even if you didn't know your doshas, Ayurveda is really about listening to your body and learning what the body likes, what it doesn't like. When you eat something, you automatically know, oh, my stomach didn't like that,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And then listening to when the time that your stomach didn't like that and saying, I'm not going to do that again.
Mm.
That.
Rakhi, I'm going to interrupt you for 2 seconds because I feel like the day I grew up was the day I stopped doing things that were bad for me. I feel like so many years I knew there were certain foods or people or alcohol that didn't suit me. And I'm like, well, maybe this time will be different. The day I would just constantly be sleeping with 3 pillows because my stomach was nauseous. And I just don't do that anymore because now I'm like, no, that doesn't agree with me. I feel like, honestly, that was the day I grew up. And what I'm loving about Ayurveda is there's so much talk now of the divine feminine and feminine energy. And so much of that is tapping in and listening to things that we have quietened for so long. Mm.
If we go back to where we started talking about yoga, about developing that relationship, one with yourself and then with the world around you, we seem to have forgotten that, with yourself bit, we're so focused on the world around us, everything that's external, that internal parts sort of taken a back seat, like falling lower and lower down the priority. But don't you think
that's because we're on our phones so much that we're exposed to so much of the world? The last 2 days I've been off my phone, just looked at it once in the morning and once in the evening. And not only was I so present with my son, I felt calm because I didn't have all the noise of everything else. So it's and then I would have like more silence in the house. I wasn't putting things on my phone in the background. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm in the 90s. I'm actually like, A, I'm feeling calm, and B, my mind doesn't feel scattered. I can think of what I need to do because I don't have so much of the outside world. So having time with the self is so important.
I mean, I have so much gratitude for possibly being one of the last generations who remembers a time without smartphones, without the internet.
Yeah, right.
But so not only is there so much noise outside us that we're not paying attention to the noise that's within us, we are ignoring things that are happening within the body. You know what? I'm sleepy. No, I'm going to push through it and finish this episode I'm watching on Netflix. You know what? I'm really, really tired. Nah, got to finish this report and send it off. We're just always in the state of doing, acting, moving. And that's the thing.
We're in the doing more than the being. That's what we've been doing for the last few years. And I would call it disrespect. I think we're completely disrespecting our bodies. When our bodies say it's tired and we push through, we wouldn't expect our little children, like when my son starts crying and looking tired, I don't say push through, we're going to watch this show. I put him to bed. So I've started treating myself like that because what I realized was the number one thing I sacrificed to do things was sleep. I have to fit all this in. Well, I'll just cut my sleep an hour short. And now... and I was waking up at 4 to do things, and now I'll sleep until 6:30 because my body needs it. And I'm like, well, I'm sharper throughout the day, so I guess I just had to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. You call it disrespect. I think it's a lack of awareness when we're not thinking about it. It becomes disrespect when we willfully ignore these things, but I think the bigger issue is we're not listening. We're not important enough to ourselves a lot of the time. If we paid a little more attention, I don't think we'd be as neglectful or disrespectful of the things that our bodies need. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I like to look at myself like as if There's two of me, and one is the romantic partner. And if my romantic partner was completely neglecting my needs, I would sit down and be like, hey, first bring it up and be like, this is how I feel when you neglect this. Then if it kept happening, then I would see it as disrespect, and then I would have to question the relationship. So I think you need to treat yourself with that respect that you would expect others to give you, and listening to the body is the absolute first place to go. And the body knows too, even if it's like I always say, if you're in a job with toxic colleagues, if you're in a relationship with family or friends or a romantic partner, I've talked about I was in a violent relationship years ago. I had 4 fibroadenoma breast tumors, one like for each year we were together. I had psoriasis on the back of my head. I had IBS. I had reflux. My body was screaming, bitch,
Yeah,
we're
screaming.
uncomfortable. Yeah, so
Yeah.
me ignoring that was just completely disrespecting my needs. So that's something that for me, it's been with age. As I've gotten older, I learned to tap in and listen to
Yeah.
the self.
Yeah.
What does she need today? And regularly check in throughout the day, throughout the week. What do I need?
Yeah. Um, I also think that we, sometimes mistake self-care as being something that's selfish. You know,
Mm,
when you sit back to take a beat for yourself, you're seen as, oh, look at her, she's being lazy, or you know what, she doesn't have time for us. She's going to the spa.
mm,
And I mean that's a really silly example, but it's just self-care is so underrated.
yes.
But someone sort of reframed this whole idea of self-care in a really nice way for me is if if you take yourself out of something that's happening to you and imagine it's happening to someone you really care about, what would you tell them? What is the advice you'd give them? What do you think they should do? And then
Mm.
step back into yourself and say, hey, I should be doing these things.
Doubt. Yeah. And even it comes down to even the language. You would say kind words to your friends, but you might say some very self-critical things to yourself. Do you think it's a Western thing more so though, that guilt for taking time for yourself?
I just think it's more a sign of the times,
Modern.
which
Yeah.
is
Modern
yeah,
day.
it's we're working harder than we've ever needed to work. There's
I
more
think so.
people
I
on the
mean,
planet. There's
that's
everyone
true.
is competing for resources, time, everything, you know?
No, that's very true. I do always say though, like in Europe and Italy that I'm more familiar with, I do find that they slow down and have that rest time more without sort of explanation. But I always think of, did you ever watch Eat, Pray, Love? Actually, I saw it with
Yeah.
Liz at the cinemas. I remember, and there's this bit, it's in the book too, where she has this friend in Italy called Luca Spaghetti, which is just too brilliant. And he's like, oh, you Americans, you're always like, you feel guilty, like you work so hard all week and then you spend the weekend in your pajamas in front of the TV eating donuts and things. He's like, you wait for permission to treat yourself. Whereas what does he say? Like, we walk along, we see a sign, hey, you should take a break. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like they don't wait for permission to either rest or treat themselves. And it's almost like we wear that hard work as a badge of honor and can only rest once we've worked hard and achieved. It's
Yeah.
like we've
Yeah.
earned the rest, whereas you should really
I
just
mean,
take
rest
it
is
regularly.
fundamental.
I know,
It
I
is,
know.
it's not something
And
you
I
need
know
to earn.
that. I know that on an intellectual level, and I still have trouble switching off.
It's something that afflicts everyone. I meditate, I rest, I do all of that.
Yeah.
I've been under the weather the whole of the last week, and
Yeah, you and me both.
e- even I struggled to actually, sit down, put my feet up, drink endless cups of ginger tea and just not do anything, heal.
Right. And yet, if you were talking to a client, you would absolutely insist you must rest. See, it's the self. Yeah, this what I always say is I always feel if I rest, I'm on the back foot. Someone else is achieving something. So I gotta be in the arena. I gotta hurry up and be doing things. But no, I realize it is part of the productivity because I'm then better at what I do after a rest. So yeah,
Yeah,
we just
yeah.
gotta we
And
know it.
that's
We
the
just gotta
thing. There is actual science behind it. If you rest, you create more space in your body, in your mind to actually do a better job at the things you want to be good at,
yeah, yeah.
Um, but we're like we're constantly playing catch up.
Do you know Glennon Doyle, who wrote Untamed? It's like the best book that every woman on the planet needs to
No,
read.
I haven't read it.
I will loan it to you. And actually, while we're on the topic, I'll loan you Dr. Harmony Robinson-Stagg's book on Ayurveda who I had on the show. It's so thick. It's so in-depth. I'll give it to you. You'll love it. Glennon Doyle hosts a podcast with her partner or wife. I think they're married. Abby Wambach. She was a soccer player in the US. But it sounds like I'm the Glennon and Abby's the Alan. And she's like, Abby will like work hard but rest hard. And like, she's like, I'll come out and be like, why are you lying on the couch? Why? And Abby like feels like she should like explain herself. And then Glennon was like, no, I need to stop doing that. And that's like Alan. He'll work really hard and then he'll just like sit and do nothing and play video games for hours. But that's his process. And I shouldn't attach my values of you should be productive, you should be doing something. Like that's his autonomy and his life. And you know, at the moment he's bringing in more money so he can do whatever the fuck he wants. But see how like we all have that. And I think what Glennon Doyle said was so true. I think a lot of us would have that, and especially women, and especially in Western culture. Of, oh, you got to be busy, you got to be productive, and you know, you see it in workplaces. It's so toxic. Of can't stop and chat in the kitchen too long, got to keep going, and like it's just bleh, I hate that.
It's so interesting that you said that because when you think about rest as well, rest can take so many different shapes. You know, when Chris and I have a weekend, time off, rest time. My idea of rest is relaxing on the lounge, reading a book, drinking a cup of tea, watching a show. Chris's idea is getting out, going for a walk, you know, going record shopping and things like that. And for a little while, Chris would always get really antsy because I was just lounging around. And we had to have a conversation about rest means different things to different people, you know?
It's R&R. It's rest and recreation. Yeah.
And you know, you could take a walk and that's a rest for your brain from whatever it was doing before. And some people find it really hard to access rest in stillness. It's important for them to find that you know, that entry point into where you can actually slow not just the body, but also the mind and the breath and the nervous system down.
I hate sitting for too long. I'm really funny about that. So for me, a long walk in nature, that is my rest. And, you know, like Alan and I, when we first got together, had a free trip to Bali. It was so cool. My boss gave me this free trip. It was so awesome. And by day 3, we were both like, okay, we're rested. What do we do now? Like we're not the lay by the pool couple. So like our favorite trip was New York. And I had I'm a little more of a go-getter than him. He likes to rest more, but I had like A4 pages every day of the itinerary, right? And like we were averaging like 33,000 steps a day. He was hating on me because he had these like sores on his feet. But to me, I came home so refreshed and recharged because seeing different things, going into like looking at antique bookstores or like walking around and looking at things like that, going into delis. That to me is so relaxing. Like that's rest to me, and long walks. So, but sitting, I don't know, there's something about when I sit, I just want to fall asleep. So it's just not restful to me.
Yeah. With rest, it's so interesting. Rest is really about not just slowing down, but giving yourself space for everything to catch up with you. And rest can be very, very stillness is uncomfortable for people. Stillness can be very, very uncomfortable for people because when you create that space, things are going to come into that space. And that's things like thoughts that you've pushed to the back of your mind, feelings that you don't want to feel. And I think all of these practices, what they're trying to do is give you the resilience to be able to deal with all of that. Because eventually it is going to catch up with you. But it is going to catch up with you as psoriasis on your head.
No, the busyness is running from your issues, 100%. You need to sit with them. And that's why I like my morning meditation and deep breathing. I like that. But I definitely still like my long walks. I don't know. It's just, and I always used to work in like customer service jobs. And so like the talking all day, as much as I love it, it also drains me because I give a lot to people too.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
just always needed those long lunch breaks where no one comes with me and I just go for a long walk to like decompress.
Yeah,
So
but then what you're giving yourself is space to be out in a different environment and be with yourself.
yeah,
That is restful. That
yeah,
that is restful because it's different from everything you were doing before and everything you're going to go back and do again.
absolutely. Yeah, you're right. It can
Um,
look different for everyone. A lot of your work is around slowing down and to center the body, and a lot of people feel uncomfortable in that. So what's one gentle way someone could start reconnecting with their body?
I think just sitting with the breath, that's one of my favorite ways, is
Yeah.
you don't need anything. You just need somewhere to sit or even stand and take three breaths that you're completely focused on, the in and the out, the in and the out. It is amazing. So much of the work that I do is with the breath, and people were like, "Wow, I never knew what it felt like to actually tune into my breath." So it's such an accessible and portable practice, breathing. You're sitting in the car, you can, mindfully breathe. You're sitting at your desk, you can mindfully breathe. When everything has just, oh God, there's so much clutter in my mind, take a beat. Close your eyes. Even if it doesn't feel comfortable to close the eyes, keep your eyes open. Take a breath. Take three breaths. And it's it's right there. Your body knows how to breathe, but your body also gives you permission to control how you breathe, to be present with the breath. And I think it is one of the most powerful parts of any practice.
But it's so like this primal, vital thing. And yet, when we're day to day doing things, we don't realize how much we're doing that shallow chest breathing until we
Yeah,
stop and do breath work. And
yeah,
actually, I've got another guest. I've got to give you a book on breath work. The stats are crazy because it's actually changed. The amount of breaths have changed globally because of lifestyle has, gotten faster and faster. So that's a bit scary. But yeah, it's something so you don't need anything. It's you and your
yeah,
breath, and it's
yeah.
there at the moment. And for someone who hasn't practiced it before, I'm a highly anxious person, and whenever I sit to do it, if I'm anxious, it feels a bit funny at first, but a few minutes in, the whole dynamic of my body has changed. Like you start in one wavelength and end in another. Like the whole energy of your body shifts. So
Yeah,
stick with
yeah,
it. If it feels uncomfortable in the first few minutes, keep going because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
life changing.
These practices are really about meeting your body and your mind where they're at. So if you're feeling really anxious and you're not going to be able to do a 5-minute practice, don't do a 5-minute practice. Commit to three breaths. Do three.
Mm.
Come back to it when you feel a little bit better if you want. It can be as snack sized or it can be
Mm.
as feast sized as you want. That's the thing. These practices fit you. They're meant to fit you. They're not meant to be these inflexible, do it this way or don't do it at all practices. It's meant to be how much capacity do I have? What am I capable of? One of the things that I send to clients when I send them their practices is if you feel like you can't do this on a particular day, don't do it. That is the practice. You said that I don't have the capacity. You have recognized that too much has happened. You've taken a step back. That is the practice. Noticing
Yes.
that I can't do
Oh,
this
I love
today.
that. Oh, I love that because I have a very specific morning routine and part of it is doing the deep breathing and doing the meditating. But I did say to my husband the other day, I was so busy and I said, there's certain days where I just allow myself not to do it because I can't get into the right frame of mind because I know that I've got so much coming up. He goes, well, yeah, wouldn't that be counterproductive? I said, yeah, in a way for me, if I know I can't rest and I'm in a race to do something else, it actually feels worse. So I
Yeah,
allow myself to
yeah,
skip it that day, make sure I wake up 15 minutes earlier the next day and really prioritize it the next day. And that works for me because I have to be realistic about my schedule. And I'm not giving myself a pass multiple times a week, but if it's just not happening, I don't force it. Yeah.
yeah. Look, because when it becomes something that you've got to check off a to-do
Yeah.
list, it's
That's not the
not worth
point.
doing anymore. Yeah,
No.
exactly. When I send practices to people, I will tell them this document is for you to sort of refer to when you need it. But my hope is that the practices that really work for you will find you. You will find them within, the notes that I've sent you, and then you never need to look at this again.
I love
And
that.
then when your needs have changed or evolved, we review those practices, we make little changes, dial something up, dial something down, add something new, and go from there. But it's really not about saying, okay, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do that, now I'm going to do this.
No, but you're right. It's checking things off a list if it's like that. So what you're talking about, is realistic because it's not black and white. So everything in life changes all the time. So you have to be able to, again, it's tapping in and listening to the self. So I like that you're giving a realistic method there instead of must be done every single day at this time. That's true. Like those 75 hard and all those bullshit things. They don't work for
Yeah,
me. And they don't,
yeah, yeah.
in my opinion, they don't work for women because we're not working off a 24-hour cycle. We're working off a
No, we're not.
28-day cycle. So
Yeah,
to me, each day can look really different and that's
yeah,
okay. It's still,
yeah,
I'm still practicing self-care. It doesn't mean that every single day has to be a 15-minute meditation. It's fine. Whatever
yeah.
works in that day.
And
Yeah.
and look, meditation can be just sitting with your eyes closed, listening to a piece of music.
Yes.
Meditation can just be sitting in silence, listening to the birds or the
Yes,
rustling on the
I love
leaves.
that.
It
Well, a lot of
doesn't
the time
have
I
to
do
be,
guided meditation and I had a rough sleep last night and I just felt this morning like I don't want to hear a voice at all. So I put 432 hertz like music on and I just laid on the floor with my feet up on the lounge, for like lymphatic drainage. And I just laid there for like 15 minutes. Oh, and I did deep breathing. I felt
yeah,
so good after that. So each day
yeah,
is different. I listen
yeah,
to myself.
absolutely. Meditation, like I said, we are different every single day.
Yes.
So our practice can't be the same every single day,
Yes. Yep.
you
I
know?
love that.
And that's what you learn when you start listening to yourself, is that today I am a person who has this much energy, this much battery in my pack, and these are the things that
Yes.
I think I'm going to achieve. And on another day when, things are
Right.
different, I've eaten different things, I've slept differently, I have a different bunch of things on my to-do list, I am a different person. So
No, I love
practices
that.
like yoga, movement, asana, meditation, breath work, they've all got to match who you are on that day, not
Yes, where you're at.
this inflexible, rigid list of things that I must get through every day. And again, yoga therapy, when someone receives a practice, one of the questions I ask is, how much time do you think you have in your day to be able to do this? Sometimes I will send you a 5-minute practice,
Mm.
and
Yep.
that's it. Because right now, that's what you have space for, and that is fine.
That's it. And you know what often happens is they realize that 5 minutes feels so good. You get addicted to it and then you might lengthen it over time because you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
that's what happened to me. When
Agency.
I first, yeah, when I first started meditating and breath work, it felt like a chore and it felt like punishment. And then, or even like yoga, I do like 15-minute yoga things just on YouTube. And then my body became addicted to how I felt after it, that I would just make sure I made time for it. So yeah, it's a real gift to yourself. Mm.
And I think you said it so beautifully. It is not the practice that's important. It's what that practice makes space for in your whole life. That is
Yeah.
what it's about. Is you do a 15-minute movement practice, your body feels good for the rest of the day. It's not about the
Yes.
15-minute practice, it's about how good you
Yeah.
felt the whole day.
Yes.
You breathe to, bring your anxiety down. It is not about the breathing that you did, it's about the fact that you felt a
Oh,
little more calm. You know,
that is
that is the
so
goal.
clever that you said that. It's like, this seems off topic, but it's not. With manifestation, they're like, are you trying to manifest, that amount of money or the feeling that that amount of money will bring like the security? So there's a
Yeah.
real good hack in manifestation is don't focus on the money, focus on that feeling. And then you're on that same energetic wavelength. So it's what you're trying to achieve. What's the desired outcome? And that's, yeah, with the meditation, it's not about that or yoga or the practice. It's about what you get from it.
And all of it is really about finding the rhythm of your life.
Yes.
What 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 makes my life travel in sync? and what are the things I need to do so that it stays in that rhythm. When we do a yoga class, when you do a yoga class, someone is guiding that class. You go attend a class someone is teaching. With yoga therapy, the practices you arrive at that you send to someone are collaborative. Like I will work with you and we will explore things, see how they work for you because they've got to fit into your life. You're
Right.
going to take them away and do them. You're going to make them a part of your everyday. So,
Yeah.
so it is co-created. That practice is actually co-created. And then, like you said, when you start doing them, you start to notice little benefits at first. You enjoy those benefits, you do a little more of them. That's where agency and autonomy comes in. I like this breath practice. The notes say do it for 5 minutes, but I think today I'm going to do it for 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
and you start to build that into your life, and you realize that, maybe I don't have to sit down and do this over here. I can do it while I'm stirring the pot, making dinner,
Yes. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Or I can do it when I'm sitting at my desk and I'm between tasks, and this is a lovely little
Yeah.
circuit breaker for me.
Or at a traffic light.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I like that yoga therapy sounds very tailored to the individual. So it sounds like that's a good place to start and then maintain it through like yoga classes or something.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
and with
I
yoga
like that.
therapy, it's you do one session, go away, try the practice,
Yeah.
then we work on the practice, make sure it works for you. And then
Yeah.
follow-ups happen as and when you need. It can be a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later. Whereas
Yeah.
like, a yoga class you go a little more regularly, or yoga practice
Yeah.
you do more regularly. Yoga
Yes.
therapy is a
The
practice for
maintenance.
you. Yeah.
Mm.
It is
Yeah.
for you. And it may or may not have movement in it. So yoga therapy practices don't necessarily have movement in it. I work with people who have a lot of chronic health conditions and find moving their bodies quite hard. Sometimes we're only working with breath. Sometimes we're working with rest. Rest and breath are a big part of my work, especially with like chronic health conditions. Any movement that we do is really gentle, just getting a little bit of energy moving through the body, but really small movement. Yeah, if you look at some of the pictures of the old yogis, they sat still for hours and hours and hours. So the movement practices that they did was to make it possible for them to sit for hours and hours and hours.
That's what I hear. Yes. And that's why very often I might start my morning just by doing some movement just to get some energy
Yeah,
out, or I
yeah,
know
yeah,
I can't sit still. That's
yeah,
really interesting. You know what I like what you said earlier too is about like, so say you're having a bad day, you've had lack of sleep and you're only running at 20% and you give something 20%, you're actually giving 100% because that
exactly.
100%, if you're like 20%, if you're at 20% is your 100% capacity for the day. So I like that.
Yeah,
It's just grace with yourself, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, because there's some days you're going to be running at 120.
Yeah.
There are those days as well.
I haven't for a
So,
while, but yes. All right. Well, you've given such great wisdom there, and I think it's really nice how you've articulated the difference between yoga and yoga therapy. And I think a lot of people just didn't realize that it could be just breath work or stillness rather than
yeah.
movement. It sounds like you're very good at filling up your cup anyway, but what's something you'll be doing in the next week to fill up your cup?
I will definitely be prioritizing a little more rest because I'm coming out of being, slightly under the weather, and and the more I work with people, the more I realize how important it is to actually practice what I preach.
Yeah.
So and like we were talking about it earlier, is my work has sort of really gravitated more towards practices of rest and restfulness. Yeah, just following more of it for myself is going to be really important.
I
Not
love
just
it.
in the
Well, you
next
do
week,
that.
but yeah.
Yeah, ongoing. No, I'm the same, and I'm coming out of sickness too. I'm sure you can hear the nasal voice. Thank you so much. You enjoy that rest, and I look forward to our next yoga class together. But yeah, again, thank you just for coming on here today and just sharing so much wisdom with everyone. Mwah, my friend, I haven't interviewed a friend in so long. This is so lovely. Thank
Oh,
you,
thank
Rakhi, for
you. It was
being here
so much
today.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone, please listen to Raki's words and do something in the next week to fill up your cup, but also check out the show notes because I'll have links if you want to work with Raki or learn more about her. So check that out.